power of love between my wife and I. But when this happened, like, unbelievable the power of that your soulmate brings you.
Welcome to the fourth episode of the Logistics Monk Show. Throughout this journey, I know we've only had about 3 guests so far, but we've interviewed strangers who became friends. But today, I'm just so happy to say that I have an icon with us today. It's the most perfect time to interview the most perfect person in the world to me personally, who's affected my life. In logistics sales, for most who do know what I kind of do for a career, I got started in this industry maybe about 6 or 7 years. When I got started, I didn't have any formal training. I didn't know where I was going. I was kind of given some leads and just told to call. And what happened with that was that I ended up with transactional business. So every single day, I'd have to make 100 calls a day. And that lasted for close to about 6 to 7 months while I was there. And when I said that today is going to be the most perfect time for the most perfect person, Dan Deigan is my mentor. And it's not often that you actually get to interview your mentor because most of us, our first mentors are our parents when we come into this world, then our teachers, maybe music teachers, and everybody like that. But it's always them giving their knowledge to you. But how often do we actually have to have a conversation with them where we get to learn about them and their story and share it with the world? With Dan, I appreciate him for everything that he's done for me to this point in my life. And it's not a give or take relationship, but I do know that Dan is my biggest cheerleader. He went from my mentor to a friend to a brother. And I'm happy to say that he's family. He's someone to me who's done a lot for not just myself and the logistics career and everything like that, but he just has an outlook of just being such a big supporter to anybody who he comes across. And a lot of people who said that they have the honor of meeting Dan, they know that they left that conversation feeling better than they did before. So I know I'm talking a lot here, but there's no amount of talking or there's no amount of bios that I can talk about Dan that will do him justice. But today he comes on the Logistics Monk show. He was the first person I reached out to and he said yes right away. So to know that, to have him and the honor for him to come on our show, somebody with so much tenure, so much experience, and giving back to something like this, my little small business here that I'm trying to grow, I can't thank him enough. So I want everybody, we're not live, so we're not going to say welcome Dan to the show, but I personally want to welcome a brother, a friend, a mentor, a hero to the show today, Dan Deigan.
Hey, wow, that was quite an intro, brother. Quite an intro. Thank you. I'm blessed. You're right. I'm going to need tissues today, I think, because I almost started crying already, man. Like, Christ.
Yeah, we've got half an hour to an hour today. So, a lot of things that people have known about you, but I want you to take everyone back to the beginning of your journey with logistics sales. Why did you decide that you wanted to go from a top salesman to being a sales coach, a mentor, somebody who shares that knowledge?
So that was, gosh, close to 15, almost 20 years into my career. I was actually sitting in an office with another gentleman, and it was right around probably about 4 days before Christmas. And we're sitting back. I'm having a near beer in his office, and he's having a beer. And he says, isn't it amazing? And I said, what? And he says, we're in an elite club that not very many people can get into. And I had just done about 2.87 million in GP that year. And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, Dan, 99.9% of sales reps in this industry will never make $1 million GP. And here we are almost tripling it. And there was another guy that quadrupled it. And I said, well, why only 99? He says, well, because it's the people that know business. It's the people that went to school and got educated. And Ryan, I stopped and I went, what? Like, this guy obviously doesn't. I'm a grade 9 dropout. Like, I said, well, where do you think He says, oh, you definitely went to business school. And I'm like, wow. I go, no, I'm a grade 9 dropout. He's like, no, and he just didn't believe me. He thought I was totally pulling his chain. And I said, no, anyone can do numbers like this. Like, we're in a $762 trillion industry. Anyone can do those numbers. I said, you just have to dedicate yourself to your business. The unfortunate thing is more people spend more time planning their vacation than they do their life. And we just kind of wake up, and I'm sure you've been there, where you just kind of wake up and you go with the flow for the day, never really thinking, is this my career? And if it is my career, do I want to be the best in it? And that's what I chose to do. Probably 10 years in, it took me about a decade to realize I've got something good here, because I grew up in the age where education was everything. Like, if you didn't have an education, and then it was the age of, you know, where our parents taught us that you go to work for a big company, you stay loyal
Mhm.
for 25, 30 years, you get a pension, you get a nice watch when you retired, and you build a 401k or RSPs and all that. And I never believed in that. And I was in school thinking of working, and I was in school thinking of bodybuilding, and I was in school thinking of all these things I wanted to do, which didn't include algebra, or didn't include trigonometry, or didn't include history. And I don't want to sound ignorant to anyone that's been to school, but like, my life doesn't revolve around any of those things. And I just couldn't see myself in any capacity. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I was in school. Like, no idea. I think when we go to school, we're way too early to figure out what we really want to do in life, to test things out, maybe. But about 10 years into my career, I realized, like, okay, Dan, you're either going to be a salesman or you're going to be struggling for the rest of your life. And without even, I'm not going to say trying, because I tried, but with no real strategy, I was doing really well. Like, at 18 years old, as soon as I could, I signed for my first house. And I had a two-car garage home at 18. And I yeah, I had four snowmobiles in the driveway, a brand new car, and I was doing really well. I was serving a lot of people, but it was all transactional, Ryan. Kind of like you said when you first started. It was still, for 10 years, I was transactional, but I was just hustling every single day, single, no family. So months when I didn't make commission, it's okay. I had money from last month, and then you kind of, everything just balanced out. But it was about that 20th year in business when I sat down and sat in Dave's office, and it just kind of blew my mind. And I just kind of went, wow, like, is this what people really think? Is this why so many talented people get into our industry and then leave?
Mhm.
Because they think there's some kind of magic formula that nobody's giving them. And so I decided to become a coach, because I said, listen, I've done it. I've done the numbers. I know what it is. I know the skill sets. I know how we as salespeople have to evolve with our business, or else we lose it. Because I learned that lesson a million times over. I've often sat and thought, what would life be like if you'd never lost a customer ever?
Mhm.
Right? Like, think about it. But customers come and go, and they come and go because they're not your ideal customers. They come and go because maybe we don't have the people skills to help manage our team to have the same beliefs we do. Right? Like, the strongest companies on the planet have the same cultural beliefs when you look at it, right? When you look at, like, they believe in the mission statement, they believe what the CEO does. And I'm not just talking about, this is what I say and this is what I do.
Yeah.
Like, they have the same mission. And when you and your team and your family and everyone around you believes in the same mission, it changes everything. I mean, fear goes out the window. Fear turns to freedom,
Fear to
and
freedom.
yeah, and it's and I remember vividly sitting there that day and saying, "Wow, I need to teach you." So that the next, like, right after Christmas, at that point I had 17 in Toronto, about 20 in Montreal, and about 6 in Calgary, or in Vancouver, and about 5 in Calgary that I was training. And I put together a completely different training package. And the idea was, and still is today, as you know, 10,000 sales reps generate $1 million GP in under a year. And I've had many, many do it. Um, and it's that, wow, I never thought this was possible. Like,
Mm.
it's that pie in the sky dream, right? Because you think when you
Yep.
started, right, $1 million GP, that's $83,000 a month. Like that just puts a lump in your throat. You
You're
know what I
like
mean?
thinking, hey, maybe I'll try to get 83 loads at $1,000 a pop. But it's not as easy as that, my friend. It's definitely not
Hey,
as
if
easy as
that was
that.
the case, Ryan, that'd be easy, brother. You know what I mean? That'd be stellar, or even 47 loads at 2 grand a pop. You know what I mean? Like it's it's that number is so high. But as you know, because you're living it right now, you get to that 5,000 is kind of a struggle. To get to 10,000 is kind of a struggle. Then it gets a little easier to get to 20. Then from 20 to 40 is even easier. And it's because you're evolving into the individual that can do it,
Yes.
right? No matter what. And I don't care if this is street sweeping, construction, sales in logistics, sales selling perfume, sales selling these things, little tripods. It doesn't matter what it is. When you first get into it, you look at some of the top sales reps and the numbers will blow you away. And you say, well, how in the heck can I get there? Well,
Yeah.
it's trial, it's error, but it's dedication. And saying to yourself, like you and I had a conversation not 2 weeks ago. And I said, in order for this particular thing that we're going to do to work, we need a year or two minimum of 100% dedication. Can we do that? Because it's all it takes. And in logistics, salespeople, if you give yourself a year of fully focused dedication to your craft, you won't even recognize your life
Wow.
and the joy and prosperity and harmony that's going to come with it in 12 months. It's that, I'm going to say easy because it's not simple, or that simple, not easy.
Mhm.
But anything in life, like, your guitar behind you, you dedicate an hour and a half to your guitar every day for a year without fail. How good are you going to be?
Yeah, I'm gonna be definitely the
Right?
guitar monk show, kind of go from there. But I want I want everybody to take in Dan's story of how we got started, right? And really absorb that and put yourself in Dan's shoes. He was a top guy, a top sales guy. He was in the 99.9% of all salesmen in terms of people. I mean, sorry, he was the 1%, 0.1% of that, where people don't hit those targets. And he had people quadrupling it. And he was able to say, hey, I want to give back. I want to show a blueprint. And the one thing that I've learned through Dan itself is that you've never gatekeeping, like you have your programs and different things like that. Obviously, you got to pay to play. I believe that there is a way to get in, so people actually take knowledge seriously. So in your trainings and everything like that, you give the blueprint away. You have nothing to hide. There's no, hey, when you get to 10 grand, slip Dano a nice little 2 grand or something like that. There's nothing like that. It's like, here's a blueprint that I did, and maybe this can be helpful to you. And I know myself, when I first met you, you said that what would happen if you never lost a customer. So I want to acknowledge that. That changed my life because at that point in my career, Dan, I did lose customers quite a bit, and I was going to my third company, and we all know how non-solicits and non-competes work. But the plan at my new company and my third company was that I'm going to go after the customers I had at company one, because I couldn't
Yep.
have gone after them at company two because there would have been an issue. But company one, it was off limits, and that's what really helped me. So I can't thank you enough for being a friend, for that and being that journey. You're amazing with that. One thing I want to get into is I know a little bit about it and then going through it with you, but I do not know the full story, that has been, I would want to say, maybe your last 12 to 14 months. What was your life like before you went through your cancer diagnosis and your
So,
business as well? Your life and your personal
yeah,
and
it was, you know, the whole conversation that people have, or the life changes in a split second, and live life to the fullest. And I've always heard that. I've been a personal development guy for a long time. I think until you live it, you don't really know. On June 16th last year, 2022, well, actually, I'll backtrack to March 2022. Started to get a toothache in my bottom molar. Now, I never used to be one to take care of my teeth as a kid. I have tons of cavities because I'm a candy freak, and I used to hate brushing my teeth. but I've taken oral hygiene pretty seriously over the last 20 something years, because I've kind of come to the realization you get one set of teeth, and as much as you can cut your hand open and it regenerates for the most part, your teeth don't. And so um, we have my wife's 50th birthday planned in Dominican, and I'm sitting and I'm looking at the timeline. I'm going, okay, my jaw is starting to hurt in March. We're going away in April. The last thing I want to do is like have this massive cavity or something, or I have a root canal on that side, something go wrong with it in the Dominican, because A, I'm missing my vacation, my wife's birthday, but B, I'm in the Dominican, and I'm not one for operating rooms as it is. I'm not one for hospitals, and so I couldn't imagine, nothing against the Dominican, but I couldn't imagine doing it in the Dominican, right? Going to a dentist in the Dominican, just my brain. So I said, well, I better go to the dentist. So I go to the dentist. They look, they don't find a cavity. But he says, you grind your teeth like, wow. I said, well, it's funny because like all my muscles on my right side seem stiff. And he
Mhm.
says, well, yeah, if you like grind your teeth, he says, all of these muscles all night are contracting. He goes like, are you stressed? And Ryan, I was living like the best life ever. My company, I officially kind of finished all my corporate sales, and my company was booming. I was closing deals left, right, and center. I was speaking at all sorts of cool events. I had a growing list of students. People were loving my program. I was like, no. I get excited. Like I wake up in the middle of the night and I like, oh my God, that's such a great idea. Oh my God, that's such great. And I like write things down. But I go, I'm not like stressed. I go, probably building my pool was stressful because we had the contractor walk out on us halfway through and I had to build the pool myself. But I go, but other than that, no, like it's not. He says, well, we need to make a mouth guard. So long story short, they make a mouth guard. We go away to Dominican. We come back. I get my mouth guard at the beginning of May. Tried it for 3, 4 weeks, wasn't working. But my snoring was getting bad, and I had to turn my CPAP machine up and up and up to like I was snoring even with the CPAP machine on. It was getting bad. Then I couldn't sleep, and then you know what happens if you can't sleep, and then 3, 4 nights of that, and you start going loopy. So I went to my doctor because when I was at the dentist, he started feeling around here, and he says, "Well, that lump is actually in your lymph nodes."
Mhm.
And I went, oh, okay. And as soon as I heard lymph nodes, I'm like, I got to go see my doctor. So I go see my doctor. They send me for an ultrasound. Nothing. Blood test. Nothing. So my blood test came back clear. Because I asked him, I said, do I have to worry about anything? He goes, well, Dan, your blood test came back clear. Like, I don't
Mhm.
think so. You might just have like an infection or something that's like a viral something or other that we just maybe need antibiotics to cure. He says, but I'm going to send you for a CT scan. I'm going to send you to an ear, nose, and throat specialist. So I go to the CT scan. I walk into the ears, nose, and throat. Now you got to remember, my wife and I are walking into this appointment. The C word's off the table
Mhm.
because my doctor has told me with my blood test, you will be able to see the low white blood
Did that
cells,
ever
whatever
come
the.
up though? Like, was that
Oh
ever a
yeah,
thought of yours? Like, so
yeah,
before you've gone to like the specialist and stuff like that with your own doctor, you're like, okay, we went to Dominican, we had a great time and things like that, but I'm storing all this stuff. Did you think of the C word? And
yes.
okay, so
When I
yes,
felt the lump here,
okay.
and as soon as the dentist said it's in your lymph nodes, I
And
went,
why?
oh crap.
Why did you think cancer right away?
My brother died at 30. When I was 30, he was 32. He died of cancer.
And you
And
take
he had the doctors figure he had it for, I'm going to say, a fairly long time, 5 to 7 years, but he never went to the doctor about it. He just like he had symptoms of something being wrong. And in 2016, I think it was, um, 15 maybe, um, he no, it was 30, so it was 16 years ago. I'm 46 now, so even more than that. Um, he just couldn't keep any food down, and he went to the doctor, and they did a CT scan and found like 8 tumors in him. And so what he had, one on his spine and one in his stomach, and the one in his stomach was the size of a baseball, and the one on the spine was the size of uh, like a cricket ball.
Mhm.
And every time he ate, they would touch, and he'd throw up. And so within, from diagnosis to death, was 4 months, 5
4
months
months,
maybe.
5
Yeah.
months.
So
So question for you
so
with that, right?
yeah.
Like I want to talk
Mhm.
a little bit about that, like 4 to
Yeah.
5 months with your brother. Dan, my biggest fear in life is not that my parents die. My parents are healthy and they're fine and stuff like that. But my biggest thing that I think about a lot is one day my sister's gonna have to bury me, or I'm gonna have to bury my sister. And I'm getting emotional thinking about that. With your brother, 2 years apart. Sorry, it's choking me up. But 2 years apart, walk me through that. What was that like, and what is that now, like 16 years later? Like, like you going through cancer, and maybe you wish you could probably pick up the phone and call your brother, and have that conversation.
Yeah.
What is that like?
Um, my brother and I weren't close.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't like my brother when we were kids, right? We were 2 years apart. He was a headbanger. I was a rapper kid. Um, we had zero in common. We never hung out. Um, for the most part, growing up, I thought he was an idiot. Um, and it feels horrible even to say now because of where he is. But let me tell you, you make amends pretty quick. Like
Mhm.
I had just started. It was 2005, and I had just started my logistics company. And my mom called me and said, "Listen, like, sit down. Ted's got cancer." And like within a day, I was on a plane to Edmonton and went to go out to see him to Calgary. And then Christine came out, I think 5 or 7 days later. Um, I made amends with him right away. Like, first thing him and I did is we sat down, and for like 2 hours we just talked and talked and talked. And I learned about his life and learned about him and done all the things I should have done as a brother many moons earlier. Um, I'm gonna say life gets in the way. All these things, but it's bullshit. I held grudges. Um, I didn't feel that he treated my mom and my dad properly. I felt he was, a jerk like that. Um, that kind of thing. Just stupidness when you grow up. So we got along great, and then I started meeting his friends and realized like my brother was a straight and narrow,
Mhm.
and I wasn't. I was involved in criminal activity. I was involved in drugs. I was involved in everything. So to me, he was like, okay, get out of here. But then I started meeting his friends and meeting the people he created a life with out in Edmonton. Like we're talking a far distance from Montreal, right? And he just created a new life. And the one that stuck with me the most was a lady named Sarah who had a kid. I said, well, how did you meet my brother? And she said, well, he actually picked me up off the street. So
Mhm.
he was coming out of a club. She had just had a baby and she was hooked on crack in an alley. And it was wintertime. And wintertime in Edmonton is like deadly, right? And he brought her back to his apartment. He had a 2 bedroom apartment. He was only one guy. So he moved all the stuff out of the second bedroom, put her in it. The next morning went to work
Mhm.
and left this, for lack of a better term, crackhead with a baby in his apartment. Like she could have cleaned him out, but he helped her get sober, and it was nothing sexual, nothing except wanting to be a good person. And Ryan, I'm sitting there and I'm like, and I'm listening to this woman, and she was like, I owe him my life and I will do anything for him. And he's such a good friend. And like my jaw's dropping. Like it's no joke hitting the ground because I'm going, I had no idea he was such a good man. Like not and then obviously as his brother, now it's like this whole starts washing over me because I'm like, now I'm the idiot. Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, how could that be? So I learned so much about him and his girlfriend that he had a kid with. His one last wish was, I want to marry her.
Mhm.
So Christine, my wife, myself, and some friends out there within, geez, I think it was 2 days or 3 days. We got a ring, we got a wedding dress, we found a chapel, we ordered, we got catered, and we got him and his wife married. Um, and it was like the best, it was as horrible as it is. It was like 20 years into 4 days, 5 days. And it was like the best, right? Watching my wife in action, just like making things happen. It was so cool. And being able to share that special moment. And when he came out and said, "I want you to be my best man," I was like,
Mm.
bawling, crying, tears. And then I was out there for about 2 weeks, and then I came home, and I had a business to run and stuff. And I said, "Okay." And he says, "Dad, I'm going to beat this, and I'm coming to your place in the summertime." And da da da. And I said, "Yeah, for sure, for sure." Um, and then he started to get worse. I never made it back out there again because he was always headstrong, right? He was always
Mm.
very headstrong, and he did something that I'm so proud of him for, um, which kind of shocked everybody, but I'm still very proud of him. Is he sat there one day and he's done, and he knows he's dying now. Like there's a point with cancer where it's like I'm gonna kick its ass and I'm gonna beat it. I'm gonna beat it. There's a point where you have to say, okay, like I know I'm dying. Like he had, I think in the end they found nine or 10 tumors. Like there was no chemo, no radiation that was coming back. It was too far progressed in too many organs. The day he realized that, he says, "All right." He said to his wife, he goes, "All right, let's get out of here." She's like,
Mm.
"What do you mean?" He goes, "No, we're out." And she's like, "You can't just," he says, "Yeah, literally, just tell me when it's clear." He put on clothes and he walked out, left his Xbox, left all of his personal belongings in the hotel, in the hotel room. My God, I can't believe I said that. In the hospital room, and left. And he says, "Here's the thing." And I remember because he called me. He goes, "Okay, I'm leaving the hospital." I said, "Well, where are you going?" He goes, "I'm going to my," like, him and his wife lived in a trailer in Edmonton. Because "I'm going to the trailer." And I said, "What are you doing, Ted?" He goes, "Dan, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna die with my family. I'm not
Mm.
dying in a friggin' hospital bed." He goes, "It's all there is to it." Now, there's the pros and cons with that too. Very big con being his. So he had one child with her, and she had two children of her own. So those three children saw things that children probably shouldn't have seen. And if you've ever seen somebody dying of cancer and what happens in their brains and as their bodies let go and stuff, it's not a sight for children to see. Which, you know, but that was their choice as a family, and they decided to do that. So yeah, and he ended up dying in their home where he wanted to be. Um, so that inspired me because I said, man, if somebody who I thought had no social, like, I don't know, it was just he was just weird to me as growing up as a kid, and
Mm.
then he became a brother, and
Mm.
just seeing the good he had around everyone was absolutely amazing. And when they had the funeral for him in Montreal, I didn't go. I wanted to have my own funeral for him. I didn't. He had been gone from Montreal for a decade and a half or something.
That wasn't
So
home. Yeah.
I mean, and I grew up in Montreal, but it's not home for me either anymore.
Yeah.
And I just knew that in Montreal it would be a lot of because of the conversations my brother and I had. Like, who do you still speak to? Nobody. It would be a lot of superficial "I'm sorries,"
Yeah.
and like, "Oh, I should have communicated with him better." Well, then do it. Like, don't woulda, shoulda, coulda. Get that shit out of your head. Like, do it. Like, tell the person you love them. Because again, even at that point in time in my life, conceptually, I knew life can change at the drop of a dime.
Yeah.
Until June 16th, 2022, I never experienced it, even
So
with my brother dying.
So even like you said, like let's look at that timeline, right? Like you said, it's been about 16 years since your brother passed, and first and foremost, man, I can't imagine what that would have been hard for you, in those like that 2 weeks that you spent with him. But you knew that he was happy with that and getting to know his friends and knowing who he was. A book that I'm reading right now, Dan, is The Road Less Traveled, and that was recommended to me by my wife. And it's really I'm at the stage of the book where they're talking about people's regrets, as not when they're on their deathbed or anything like that, but their regrets as they get older. And it's those same kind of conversations that we have. So let's look at that history with your brother, with Ted, and then fast forward to, hey, you were thinking about cancer, but it wasn't on the table with your doctor, and then you go and see the specialist. What
Yeah.
happens next?
Well, I call my doctor, because I'm starting to not sleep at night and I'm starting to get really nervous. Um, and I said, listen, like, do I have anything to worry about? And he says, no. And I said, because he knows about my brother, because I took colonoscopies every 5 years and stuff since I've been 30. And I said, listen, with Ted and everything, he says, no, Dan. He goes, like, you'd see it in your blood. Your blood starts, the white blood cells, I think it was, or whatever, that rise and all that. So that actually went away. It actually dissipated. And I thought it was some kind of viral thing that was going on. And I'm like, okay, you know, we're living through COVID. I had COVID 3 times. I'm thinking,
Mm,
okay, maybe this is kind of like a long haul, something. And I'm like, okay, we can, whatever it is, we can figure it out and get through it. And then walking into the ENT's office, sitting down, I remember I was in his examination chair and Christine was right there to my right, sitting in the chair. And he sits down and he goes, so I guess you guys know exactly what this is. And
mm,
we're like, actually, no. And he says, okay, well, you have oral pharyngite cancer. And I don't remember a thing after that.
mm,
I just drew a blank. I don't think I spoke for a day. And I'm just kind of staring at him. My wife's like, what are you talking about? And he says, well, you've got a 9.5 centimeter tumor that goes from your soft palate into your cheek, into your larynx, into your digestion tube, which is where your ear drains, and down the side of your throat into your voice box, and then into where your wind and esophagus meet. And explained to tell us that, thank God they caught it. It's a T3, a stage 3 T4 tumor. So and what that means is stage 3 means that it's moved from the original spot into other tissue. Stage 4 means it's moved to other organs, and those are the ones that most people don't come back from. T4 is just the largest tumor of its kind in that area. So the reason I was snoring, the reason I had to turn up my sleep apnea machine is because the tumor actually had closed most of my throat.
mm.
So what normally you have your throat, mine was the size of a head of a pen. So every time I swallowed food, it would stretch and then close around it and stretch and close around it. And it's kind of, but I just thought it was pain from my tooth.
Yeah.
So I don't think Christine and I said a word on the way home, not one word to each other. Just kind of came in and it was, gosh, it was surreal, because as much as Ted had it, and as much as, and my brother and I are the only people in my family that have ever had cancer,
Mm,
only two, which is crazy, right? Crazy. But as much as, even to this day, it feels surreal. Like the last year that's passed has been unreal, like unreal.
when you say it's like it's
And
unreal from there, it's something to take in. And for the audience as well, who doesn't know Dan as much as I know him, Dan is always like speaking at events. Speaking to him is like it's like a
everything.
fish in water. You take away that water, it's something that is like he has the podcast Sales Chatter Live, and every single day, and like every time I talk to Dan, he has like at least 4 or 5 meetings, Zoom meetings, ready to go that day. Like I'll be like, hey Dan, can I get 10 minutes of your time? He's yeah, yeah, cool, but can we schedule a meeting maybe later this afternoon? And it wasn't that he was always on the go, on the go, on the go. And Dan mentioned earlier on this episode where yeah, he would be up at night sometimes writing down ideas. His business was booming. He had people in Calgary, had people in Toronto, had people in the US. Everything was perfect for him. So, Dan, you said that ride with Christine, who's your amazing wife, and we'll get to her in this conversation as well, because I think you are amazingly lucky for the support system. If there's not, if even if you didn't have anybody else reach out to you and be a backbone, Christine is more than enough.
Oh,
And
100%.
we'll definitely get into that. But that car ride home, everything's running through your mind, right? It's not a blank, like you said, you blanked out a little bit, but I know things will be running a mile a minute, right? Maybe get a little queasy feeling in your stomach, just kind of thinking about that, and then you're probably thinking about your kids, your two kids as well. What was that next 24 to 48 hours like? What were the next steps from the specialist in terms of treatment, all that stuff? But what did that maybe let's instead of 24 to 48 hours, what did that next week look like for you?
It actually became a whirlwind. Um, and here's why. Because not knowing it then, but knowing now, because of the size and the aggressiveness, it was a very aggressive cancer. Um, my doctor said it best. He said, "We want to close the barn door before the horses get out, because
Mm,
the horses can get out. And if they do, it's not going to be good." And meaning, like, you have a finite time here. Um, we were actually very blessed. This doctor went to school with almost every one of my team at Princess Margaret. So
nice.
he got us in like literally within 3 days. We took a biopsy. Um, Within 5 days of that, I was at Princess Margaret discussing the surgery, radiation, chemo, that kind of stuff. It was too big for surgery because I would never be able to speak again. Um, they decided to go radiation, 35 rounds of radiation, 5 days a week for 7 weeks. Without fail, the harshest radiation they can give you. Like, it's been a year and I still have the color difference in my neck because it
Mm,
was just like intense. And then 3 rounds of chemo. So um, July 28th, so June 16th was diagnosis. July 28th, I started treatment.
so June
In
16th is
between that, in between that was CT scans, PET scans, dental oncology, where they take a full, because the thing with radiation is where it was, it could deteriorate my jaw, my teeth. So they take a full sculpture of your teeth. I have to use trays every day with fluoride in it in order to
Mhm.
keep my teeth healthy, or else they'll rot right out from the radiation, even now.
Mm,
Um, so then it's dental oncology, then it's learning how to do this, then it's going through the process and what to expect. And then it's like, so we were it in those 40 days, 42 days from diagnosis to treatment starting.
mhm.
It was a whirlwind. Like, my business pretty much stopped June 16th.
And I
June
want to get into that a
16th.
little bit about like what was
Mhm.
that? So you had your own like logistics business, like your like everything with your training stuff like that. You had a new business on the horizon that you're still working on and things like that. Like you said, it completely stopped. How did you feel? Did you kind of block it out a little bit because like, hey, I got a tough battle ahead of me, or was it something that ate away at you? Like, shoot, man, I need to get this done, but my body won't allow me to.
So it was actually neither.
Okay.
Um, the first thing I thought about was I made a deal with my students. And so part of my program was twice a week me going live and sharing sales strategies, ideas, and tactics that were working, answering questions, because I believe that many online courses, they give you the course, but then they leave you hanging. Like, it's okay, you pay me your 2 grand, and then be my guest. If you have a question, ask customer service. I was
Mm,
there Tuesdays and Thursdays to answer questions live on air, live in the members area, and that was, for me, was everything. That was the meat and potatoes of the course. Because if you don't understand what I said in the course, I can explain it a different way, where you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense, okay, let's do it. So I immediately that day shut down the credit card system, because I wouldn't be able to fulfill what I promised.
mm,
um, I immediately let all the students know that, hey, listen, that this is what's happening. They're telling me within 3 weeks of starting treatment, I'll barely be able to speak. So, like, live events are going to kind of shut down on towards this date. I still did my twice a week live until I couldn't speak, and then I shut it down. But I didn't take any new students on because it wouldn't be fair to them.
mm,
Um, and then uh, and then I just focused on my health.
Mm.
And that came from some good friends that said, it's time. And Ryan, here's the thing. I believe the universe gives us things to teach us lessons, to show us different routes, and maybe to show us a path that we never thought existed.
Yeah.
And as much as I went through trust me, I went through all of the phases, right? The angry phase, the F you everyone phase, that how could this happen to me? What the hell did I do in my life to deserve this? Like, I've been through all of them. And then I realized that I've never taken time out for myself ever in my
Mm.
life. Like, since I was 16, I got started in this business at 17. I've taken great vacations, but you ask my wife, I'm 90% of the time I'm with my laptop on the beach.
Yeah, you were doing your
And
live podcast while you were in Punta Cana. I remember that. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And then none of that, I was on that show in Punta Cana. I was on 2 other shows in Punta Cana, because I was like, yeah, I'm on vacation, but I love doing this.
Mm.
So it's not really work, but it's like I'm not with my family,
You're not
right?
present. Yeah.
No, and I mean, don't get me wrong. Afterwards, I was,
Yeah.
but it's like there was never just one day except Saturday and Sunday, and we left on the Sunday, where it was like there was nothing for me to do but hang with the family or hang with my wife. And through this journey, Christine never left my side, ever. No matter what was going on, she never left my side. When I had complications with my G-tube surgery and I was in the hospital for 5 days, the only time she left my side is to come home to get more clothes. Like, it's, you don't understand the power of love. I truly believe this until something happens. Like, I thought I knew the power of love between my wife and I, but when this happened, like, unbelievable the power of that your soulmate brings you. Like, I can't even. I could sit here for 5 hours thinking, and I would never be able to get the words that describe it. It
Yeah.
is just harmony in so many different ways. And I think back through all of the challenges and trials and tribulations. Like, we're sitting here almost a year later, and
Mhm.
I just started eating a week ago.
Yeah.
Like, I stopped eating on August 4th, 2022.
Oh,
And
that's great.
it's been liquid diet through my G tube directly into my stomach. I was 205 pounds when I started. At my lowest, I was 142. And there's been some horrible things, like violently throwing up in the vehicle on the way to the hospital, where, like, literally it's almost like it's coming out your eyes and everything. And you really start paying attention to people's journeys. And
Mhm.
this is where in life everyone's journey is different. And it's funny, it's I don't want to say it's kind of like when you choose a vehicle, all of a sudden you start seeing them everywhere. But
Yeah.
I've now met 4 people that have had throat cancer,
So what are
and
those
I've known these
conversations
people for
like?
a long time. They're
Well,
so different. They're so different.
what do you respect about them, knowing that, like, these are 4 people, like you mentioned, that you've known for a while, and them kind of going through it? What do you find? What do you find that the similarities and differences in your stories, and where do you guys connect the most? Like, other than saying, "Hey, we just had cancer," like what did you have in common with them versus that your amazing wife, your amazing kids, myself, our friends couldn't have seen?
They became much nicer people when it was all done.
Do you think you
Like,
became a
one
nicer
of them,
person?
one of them was, um, I think so. I think I've become more aware, more aware. I think I've realized what's truly important. Um, I've gotten a fire lit under me. Um, I've always wanted to help, but now I've got a fire that's wanting to help. One of my buddies that went through it. He was getting a big for his britches. I guess is the best way to put it. Promoted beyond his means and all that, and he is just the nicest guy on the planet now.
Mm.
Like, and I can remember him and I butting heads, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, well, I probably had an attitude too, because I was doing big numbers, and and I might have had that my way or the highway mentality, which is probably why we got, we did this a bit. Um, I see things differently. The
Yeah.
gift to me has been the vision.
Mm.
The vision. I try and think twice before getting frustrated or angry.
Mm.
Things that used to frustrate me just roll off my back now because it's like, really, like
Yeah.
it could
I
be a
wish it
heck of
sounds
a
like
lot
that.
worse.
Well, I want
um,
to share with you, Dan, like my year that it's been with you being a good friend of mine and like I said, a mentor, brother, you going through this. So I know when I heard you sent me the message and you like we had a call and stuff, and you said, "Hey, I got cancer." It was hard for me to comprehend because just like you and your brother, there's never been cancer in my family. So when I hear something like, "Hey, we've got I've got throat cancer," I'm like, "Okay, well, Dan's gonna beat this 100%. It's gonna be easy peasy. They caught it, done work. He does his treatments, boom." But what got to me, Dan, was the text messages that we would go back and forth, and you're like, man, I really was on devil's like doorstep. There was nights like you would say like, not today, like or just take me. Can you walk through the audience with that? Because I think there's so much power in what you're saying, that, like you said, you've connected with four people who have that story. There's going to be people who resonate with this so much because this is something that it's someone's going to get cancer, and not even cancer. It could be something that, like, they've lost someone or something like bad has happened to them to kind of bounce back, like you said, with the fire. But coming back to it, those days that you wanted to give up, because correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like there would have been those days
yep.
that you're like, the pain is too much. I just can't do this. What do those days look like? And what, besides like your wife and kind of giving faith, what gave you the hope to be like, I'm not throwing in the towel, like your unfortunate brother did?
It's so it actually turns out to be pretty comical because I couldn't imagine the people that were in the rooms next to me, because I started screaming at the top of my lungs, yelling at the pain, and it was like, so it all started when um, I had an issue with the G tube surgery, and what had happened is all of my stomach muscles convulsed and just like keeled into each other, and then got stitched. So like my whole stomach was buckled, and I was on 30 grams of morphine a day and 30 milligrams of morphine a day, and it was doing nothing for the pain. And I remember sending a text message to my wife again, again, every time the pain would hit, again, 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 again. And then when my wife went to bed, I sent the text message to myself again, 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 again. And I sent it 137 times in 2 hours. As every time this like sheer, like somebody stabbing you in the gut with like a machete, and just turning it. And that's when I sent my wife a text message saying that I can't do this anymore. Like I can't. And I'm one of the most spirited people you'll ever meet in your life. And that crushed my wife because she's like, for you to want to give up. And then I just kind of sat there and I said, really? Really? Like, is this going to be the end? Is it not a chance? I got way too many things to do in life. So I started yelling. And I don't know if you ever read Napoleon Hill's Outwitting the Devil, but if you haven't, that is a must read, a must read. And what it is the devil's in our head and he's having a conversation with the devil. So I started having that conversation at about 2:30 in the morning until about 6:37 in the morning. Like I didn't sleep for 3 days. And I'm screaming at it, going, "Oh yeah, oh that's a good one. You got me on that one. Yeah, well you just wait, MFer. I'm gonna get you. Yeah, you look at this, look at this, look at this." And I just screaming, and I'm like, "Urgh." I'm like, "Yeah, now try it again." And then and I'm like, I'm having this conversation, and I can just imagine the people next to me thinking, "Who is this psycho you just put in a room next to me?" Like screaming, screaming. Like I almost kicked the bottom of the bed out. I was in so much pain. It was like a revolving door of doctors for 2 days coming in to find out what's wrong.
Mm.
And finally, they brought me down to the operating room. My oncology doctor said, "Go down and take the suture out." So they took the suture out. I was fine after that. But that was the first time I was like, I'm done. I'm
Mm.
done. I can't do this anymore. and you stay strong for so long, right? Like we went through 35 rounds of radiation. We were in and out of the hospital. Every time I had chemo, I had to stay in the hospital because of my diabetes. The first round of chemo was absolutely a nightmare because they didn't want to give me as much steroids because of my diabetes. They didn't want to send me into DKA, which is diabetic ketoacidosis, where your blood pretty much turns to acid and eats your organs. All these different things. My kidneys, they could fail because of all the medications going through them because of my diabetes. Like there's all these aspects of it that were just making decisions that sent me on paths where I would rather just say, I'll control my sugar. Just give me the steroids that need to go with the chemo because I mean, it was violently throwing up, violently. And then there's the thing, right? I'm trying to keep my weight up. I'm trying to keep my nutrition up because in the end, it's my nutrition that got me where I am today. When I started focusing on my nutrition over everything else, I started to get better. And there's another thing. I started to get better when I eliminated the anger, the frustration. It was amazing how quick I turned around because I was angry. I was angry at everybody. I was angry at people developing our product. I was angry at friends that didn't keep in touch. I was angry at parents. I was angry at a lot of people. And the day I let go of that, I was like, wow, this is really amazing. Like everything will happen when it's supposed to happen. And I don't mean just sit back and do nothing. I mean, if you got a goal, you go chase your dream.
Yeah.
But sometimes kicking in those doors is not the right thing to do. Like I wanted to go snowmobiling this year. I love snowmobiling. I could have kicked in the door and gone snowmobiling. I know it would have sent me back 2 months.
Yeah.
I know that, Ryan. I know that. And as hard as it was, because I felt like I could go for now, and it's this very fine line between mental health, because for me that was huge. I became very depressed. I had huge anxiety. I'm still on medication for depression and anxiety because my body still can't keep up to what I want to do. I still, and I'm sorry, but as a sales rep and as somebody that has always been the direct result of everything I've gotten in life, piece of you is attached to those results, right? A piece of your well-being, a piece of your personality is attached to those results, right? And when you can't do it, I had again, as silly as it sounds, and I know it sounds crazy, I had anger at people that were making it because I was lying in bed.
I can see that. I can see that 100%.
Yeah, and
because it just keeps coming up, and like you're Dan Deigan, the salesman, the coach, the everything, but the husband, the father, all that stuff. But I want to talk a little bit about like Dan Deigan, like the person. Like you mentioned that you've never taken time for yourself, and when you got this diagnosis of getting cancer, it was like, okay, well, this is something for me in a kind of a funny way. And with you kind of saying again, and then having anxiety and depression and things like that. Is there anything that you would change, Dan, with
Nope.
how everything went?
No.
And I'm proud of you for saying that.
No.
And why is that?
There is a pot of gold in everything, and we're always 3 feet from gold. It's only there if you want to see it. And I'm able to see it. And it's not because I got a story now and all this. No, I needed to go through this. I really did. And as crazy as that sounds, I needed to do this.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it was. I don't ever want to find out. But my life was going in a direction. I believe the universe came in and I was on this path, and the universe came in and said, okay, let's just take this detour and we're going to come back. Why? I don't know. I could have been, on a plane somewhere that I would have never got off of. I could have been walking down the street somewhere that I was and got in the middle of I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what it
You
is,
just
but
don't know.
it's.
It's one of those things that, and then Dan, if you don't mind me asking,
Mhm.
are you okay with me asking like me talking about my perception of like your whole
Yeah,
journey?
yeah,
Okay.
go for it for
Um,
sure.
my interpretation of the whole thing as a whole was that since I've known you, and like I said, I've known you for about 3.5 years now, always kind of been like that solo guy, that one man team kind of doing everything, anything and everything. And I think what I've learned in this journey, and I saw it myself, was that the lesson that I saw that you could have learned and you have learned was to put trust into other people,
Hmm.
to basically be like, you know what, be vulnerable. Like I physically, and it took you. Not being physically being able to do it. It wasn't that you were mentally exhausted, like from writing or anything like that, or you were tired. It was like a physical reason to be like, I can't do this anymore. Would you think that's a fair
Yeah.
assessment of
Hmm. Very, very, very intuitive. Very intuitive, brother.
That's perfect. So I can't thank
Hmm.
you enough, brother. I do have one question for
Okay,
you.
go
Actually, I
for it.
got two more questions for you, actually. They're pretty quick questions. Um,
Are you sure? Because I give long answers.
well, they're gonna it cuts off at an hour, so we got a few
Oh,
minutes.
okay, okay, okay.
Not just checking. But
Click. Okay.
first question for you, Dan. Did I do enough through your whole journey?
Yes, Ryan. You did more. Well, I'm still waiting for my curry chicken, but you
That
did.
will come.
You
That will
yes.
come.
I'm eating now. By the way, just want to put that in your ear. Yeah, brother. I can't tell you how grateful I am and how honored I am to call you a friend, to call you a business partner. Um, it's because of you, I was able to know in the end, getting back on the horse is going to be easy. And in the end, Ryan believes in the same thing. He wants the same mission, and he's going to help people in my absence. And that's really what was the scariest part is is the individuals that I asked to step in, is it going to be self fulfilling or are they going to pay attention to the audience? Because there's two very different things, and you can see it in a lot of people. There's a lot of people out there, whether it be podcasts, whether it be training, whether it be whatever, where it's all about them. I'm all about the students, the people that really want to get done what we can help them do. And I believe you are too. You look at your customers and how you treat your customers, how you treat your team, and it's all about them. And how can I help? And how can I help? And you know, for the last 7 or 8 months now, I think it's probably because it was like September, and then I came back for 2 weeks or something before I got all my infections and had pneumonia every second week and hospitalized, and then a DKA and all that. So I mean, to call it 8 months straight, you know, you've served the community at the highest levels, and I'm so honored that you chose to do that and you accepted my request to do it. And I mean, I can't tell you how much it means to me. Like I can't even put it in words, man.
I'm thankful for that, and that wasn't my intention of like to have this like, hey, let's happy rhyme. But I just want to like, you mentioned that, with friends and things like that, you got angry at different people, and I wanted to know. I knew where we kind of stood because like you're my one of my best friends. But last question for you, Dan, before we get wrapped up here. I felt like we've had a really good conversation. This is probably one of my favorite ones that we've ever done throughout, regardless sales chatter or logistics monk show. Is there a question that you wish that I asked you today?
Mm. You know what? Probably the only other one would be what relationships mean to you now compared to what they meant to you before.
Okay, well, you have the
And
floor.
the answer is everything. They're everything now. I've realized that if I truly want to help people the way I say I want to help them, I can never do it alone. It's got to be in partnership. You got to, you know, people that believe in it and want the same things. And we can always find people. That's why there's all these groups online, right? That's why there's all these Facebook groups and Reddit groups because they all have the same belief system. And it's surrounding yourself, you know. Um, Simon Sinek said it best when he says you get the right people on the bus the first time.
Yeah,
And
it's
if
fun.
probably relationships then and now would have, the only other question I would have been pretty cool, and I would have been like, Dan, that's a really good question. Would have been that, brother.
Awesome. Okay. Definitely for next time. For everybody that's watching out there, how can people get a hold of you, Dan? Plug everything that you got.
Oh, easily. I'm on LinkedIn. On Facebook and Instagram, it's Dan Deigan at HPLS, at Dan Deigan HPLS. On LinkedIn, just Dan Deigan. My email is dan@dandeigan.com or info at Dan Deigan. I got like Ryan will tell you, I got like 15 different email addresses. But definitely, I mean, visit my website, dandeigan.com. Connect anytime you want.
Perfect. So thank you so much, brother. How do you feel about spending this hour with me on the Logistics Monk
Love it.
show?
Love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Love
Thank
it,
you so
man.
much.
I love it. And you know what? You're going to do so well on here. And I'm so happy for you, brother. And I can't wait to help you succeed and promote it for you and stuff. I think it's awesome. And, I just got to say, the logistics monk, like, I could never think of anybody besides you because you're always so chill and you're just calm, cool, and collected, brother. You're like the picture of the duck on top of the water where he's just like, and you're just so calm and cool, man. I love it. I love it. Great name, great show, buddy.
Thank you so much. So, Dan, can't thank you much. It's been amazing. Thank you to the audience. Whether you're watching this live Monday at 5 p.m. or you're catching this at any time on YouTube, if you found value in this, I'm stealing this from Sales Chatter, Dan, but if you found value in this, please like, comment, subscribe to our channel. Like we went from 0 to 38 subscribers in like 30 days. And I know it might not sound a
Nice.
lot, but that's big
That's
to me.
huge.
It's sharing the message that we always have. So please like, comment, share with a friend, family member. This is a show where we have, not to say I hate the word real conversations, but we want to kind of have vulnerable conversations, get to know people as people, because we can always. If I wanted to learn about Dan, about his sales career and everything like that, there's so many podcasts out there. You can just Google his name. That's not the intention with the show. This intention is to get to know the person behind the artist. And I felt that we had a great conversation with that. So we'll see you guys next week for episode 5. I can't believe it's episode 5 already. But please subscribe. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. What else? Instagram as well. So we'll see everybody. Be safe. Take care. Dan, thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. I'm honored.